So sales is hard. Sales is really hard. It's where a vast majority of small businesses fall apart, right? Just getting the first customer, getting your first 10, 100, 1,000 customers and doing all of that profitably. And a lot of small businesses, and no one says this, should fail because the product or the service is not valuable enough. So in this video, we're gonna separate those two things apart, and then I'm gonna get into the last 8 years of my life, all my consulting work, the work I've done on my own, and the book I wrote about literally this subject. I'm gonna cover all of that in the next 10 minutes. And obviously I'm not gonna cover the granular A to Z of sales and every possible type of sales in 10 minutes. What I'm gonna do is set you up, think of this whole video as a springboard to ask the right questions, to look at the right things, to know exactly after watching this video what you need to do next, and after that, and after that, and after that, to reach that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow of a consistently profitable sales funnel to grow your small business and turn it into a big business. I have absolutely nothing to sell you. All I ask is that you subscribe, and that said, let's get into it. Okay, so all of my experience here is in small businesses specifically. What I've spent the last nearly decade doing is small businesses. I say that right here. If you do more than a few $1,000,000 a year, this video is not for you. I am not the right person to ask, skip the video. If you are just starting, you're looking to start, or you're doing a few $100,000 a year, and really you're just struggling with sales, something is wrong in your system, then this video is for you. That said, how to sell is intrinsically a really difficult question because it's so ambiguous, it's so grand, and it's probably as ambiguous as your actual sales process, which we're gonna get into. So I wanna rephrase that into how can you sell? We're gonna put some constraints on there, and that's gonna make that question a lot easier, and you'll see how this plays out. So we're gonna cover two things first. First is the types of selling, the types of sales and sales processes, the domains, and then the sales structures. And because those are predefined things, if we just take those very limited possible set of options and we apply them to your business, then how to sell becomes a much more feasible question to tackle and approach. So there are 5, essentially. There is word of mouth, and I'll get to that. I'll come back to that in a second. There's cold calling, so just picking up the phone, calling people who have no idea who you are, what your business is. Cold email, same thing, just over email. There's content, that's social media, that's also just your website and any sort of media about your business. And then advertising. Advertising is kind of the big one in a lot of people's minds. That's not necessarily true. I think all of those 4 are extremely useful. It just depends on the type of business. And when you think about advertising, right, there's pay-per-click advertising, that's Facebook ads, Meta ads, TikTok, Google, etc. There's print, that's your kind of incumbent newspaper ads and print flyers as well. Influencer marketing, and then just contract ad purchases. So there's sites like, say, Goodreads, where you pay 5, 10 grand. The same applies to, say, bus networks in cities. You place some kind of campaign total, and then that gets distributed over the duration of the campaign for some kind of impression or click-through count. And again, that differs from PPC or pay-per-click, where you only pay when someone actually clicks on the ad, and that works as an auction. So different advertisers, you and your 80 other businesses who are in the same area, for example, are bidding on that, and the highest bidder, or the bidder that the auction is best for, as per the grand algorithm, right, the man behind the curtain deems worthy of it, well then they win, and then the ad gets shown, and then you pay when the ad is shown when someone clicks on it. Anyway, those are the 4, right? Cold calling, cold email, advertising, and content that are very material, right? Like, okay, I can take X, Y, Z actions to go make that happen. I can call more, I can make more content. The 5th is kind of the boogeyman of the bunch, that is word of mouth. And this is what I said a few minutes ago, where a lot of businesses should fail. And it says something about the business if selling is incredibly difficult. So I kind of compress that into the adage of pipeline doesn't beat product. If you have an incredible sales team, that's not going to beat 99 times out of 100 a fantastic product, and vice versa. And so I really urge you, before you watch any videos on sales and marketing and all of that, does anyone actually want your product? And if you have talked to 10, 20, 50, 100 people who you think are in your ICP or who you think are perfect for your product or service, and their response is lukewarm or they don't immediately jump on it, that's the problem right there. Forget everything else, forget the tactics, forget how to optimize your sales funnel or create perfect ads and retargeting and pixels and all of that. Just get a product that actually sells your demographic, some kind of demographic, relatively easily. Like you talk to those people and they actually want it. And then use sales to just put the gas on the fire, the cold calling, the cold email, advertising and content. Then you just scale it up, you blow it up. But there has to be something intrinsic there. You're not going to sell your way out of a bad product or service. I'm sure you can find a few exceptions to that. That's variable just depending on the industry, upon hype and bubbles and whatnot. But don't become the exception to the rule. Play to the rule, and the rule is have a good product or service, and then sales helps you blow that up, not the other way around. And then, like I said, we want to eliminate things. We want to put some constraints on this question of how can you sell more? How can you grow your business? So there are these 5 ways. If you have a bakery, for example, you may get into wholesale. You may get into B2B, selling your bread to other bakeries, right? Who knows? But if not, if you're just selling to the people that walk in your door, forget about cold calling, forget about cold email. Now you're down to advertising content to word of mouth. And right there, we're down to 3 ways of possible selling, 3 very defined ways of growing your business versus, oh, how do I sell? And there's all these different things. We're down to 3. And the same applies vice versa if you have a SaaS business, if you have a content business, right? You can narrow this down. So take a moment, think about it for your business. Out of these types of sales, what is the best fit for you and what's even possible in the first place? Next, we have the sales funnel or the sales structure. Before we get into those specific ones, I want to make this point, which is the big thing. If you remember one single thing, one point, one sentence from this video, it's what I'm about to put on the screen. And that is this. It is operationalize, right? The golden word. The problem facing so many small businesses or people who want to start a small business is that sales is ambiguous. It's a one-off thing. It's kind of random. It's not a system. And the moment you have a system, it makes it 100 times easier to actually improve that system. And so the exercise I want you to go through if you have a business or when you start a business is to break down this ambiguous thing of growing your business into how do I get customers, either how you get customers or how you think you're going to get customers if you haven't started the business yet. And I want to touch on how exactly to do that. So what we're going to do on the far left side here is a customer who has never heard of your business. They don't know who you are. They don't know what your business is, what your service or your product is. On the far right side, we have the closed won customer. They bought your piece of bread from the bakery. They bought your software. They're on consulting calls with you. And then we need to fill in the middle there. And we need to, every single kind of stage there, every step in the process of someone's never heard of me to I'm taking their money, document that out and think of it as stations. This is a factory production line of sorts. That's why I use the term operationalize. And then we can apply metrics to each of those stations. So for example, if you run a bakery, going back to that example, let's say 1,000 people walk by your store every day. How many of them enter the store? Let's say it's an 80% drop off, and that's probably really high, but 200 out of the 1,000 people enter the store. Well, that's right there an 80% drop off. And then in the store, well, how many actually pick up a product and go to checkout and buy? Maybe that's another 80% drop. And the moment that you break it up like that, and that's a very simple example, it gets a lot more complicated than that, and you'll see in a second, then it becomes something much more material as well, because we have our solutions and we have our problems. We have the ways we can sell, and then we have, if we're selling in that way, the specific areas where we can measurably, mathematically improve, or we have other things we can try to improve. And you'll see what I mean here in a second. So here are a few examples of sales funnels or sales structures, so to speak. At the top here, we have just Facebook, pay-per-click advertising. People see the ads, they click through to a product landing page. This is like ecom basically. and then they check out, they buy the product, it gets shipped to them, right? You could also have much more of a home service business, a construction business, like let's say a plumber, a handyman, where people call the business from Google Maps, they schedule an inspection, a free inspection, which might be some kind of promotion, may tie into a paid service, you book the paid service, you have a customer. And then the third at the bottom there is closer to a content like consulting, info product business, where you produce content on social media that ties into a sales call, or a discovery call is what the DC acronym means, and then you book a close call if the discovery call goes well, and you kind of qualify them, and then they go through and they start paying you and the service starts. So those are 3 examples of sales funnels. Again, going off, if these businesses went through this process of kind of laying out their sales funnel. So go do that right now, or think about that, pause this video, don't watch to the end if you haven't done this, and then come back, and then please do watch to the end. That said, here's a visual example. I just threw that in GPT, so hopefully this makes more kind of intuitive sense. Again, we're starting at the top, and this is that third example, so the content example here at the bottom. At the top here, these are people viewing a post on social media about your business or about you, right? They have never heard of you before. So that's the top or the left side of the funnel. And then we go down, or however you visually think of it, you go inward to the right. At the bottom, you have the customer. And so you are just mapping out, in a sense, okay, what is every stage the customer goes through, and at what stage do I lose someone? What are the metrics there to put numbers to it? And then the next question is, well, how do you improve that? So in this case, for example, you may have a 2% conversion from content views into meetings, 40% into completed calls, and so on, and the numbers get smaller and smaller. And I hope you can see right now that how this question becomes a lot less scary. It's not, how do I grow my business? It's not, how do I get more sales? It's rather, for example, how do I increase the show up rate here from 70% to 90%? Or, oh, hey, if I doubled, if my content view conversion to Calendly went from 2% to 6%, I would 3x the entire rest of the funnel. So how can I make my content, how can I throw call to actions in there? How can I make it more engaging? Because if I just get that from 2% to 4%, I double my whole business. And that's a much more specific, actionable thing than just how do I grow my business. And that is something where you can go and do research on it now, because you know the questions to ask. And this is something I want for you from watching this video, if you were in the position of oh, how do I grow my business, right? You should know the questions to ask and the areas where you need to improve, if you just think of this as a process and very materially put it on paper. Now we get into the nuts and bolts here of how do you sell? Now I wanted to jump out of my computer before we get into specific strategies for each type of selling to share something with you that would have saved me countless hours when I first started creating real entities and businesses and managing a lot of that behind the scenes kind of granular work. When I first got into this, I thought I could just focus on the product and service and ignore everything else. And what has happened frequently is that I overlooked the back-end nightmare just waiting for me, right? Bookkeeping, taxes, business filing, all that stuff that no one tells you about when you are looking to start your own business, or worse, you already started one and still no one mentioned any of that. And then you have to overpay for outside help or spend a ton of time not focusing on your product and business just to get all of that back-end work done. And so that's why I want to share Doula with you and where they come in. They handle the entire back end of your business so that you can focus on everything we're talking about today, actually selling and growing your business. They will set you up with an LLC in minutes, handle your bookkeeping, manage your business filings, and even help with sales tax registrations and e-commerce analytics. They work with entrepreneurs from all over the world, so you don't have to be living or working in the US, and they can actually help you get a US bank account through their partners. And since that whole process can seem intimidating, Doula offers free consultations so that you always feel comfortable and understand the whole process of what's actually going on. So if you want to build your business correctly and that much more easily and focus on what actually matters, right? The building and growing and selling for your business, go visit the link in the description or on the screen now and use code JOHNLAW, JONLAW for 10% off LLC formation and bookkeeping. And that said, let's go jump back into my computer to how to actually close those sales once your LLC and bookkeeping and business backend is good to go with Doula. I said this before, pipeline doesn't beat product. And so what I really suggest you think of is who is the perfect customer for your business in your mind? Who do you think your ideal customer is? And then if you have never talked to them, pause this video, go talk to them, go find them and talk to them about your product. If you have talked to them, how difficult is it to sell to them? Because if you talk to 100 people who you think are perfect customers for your business, and you can only sell and convince maybe 1 or 2 of them to actually go and sign with you or to buy your product or whatever it may be, that says something about, again, the product and service. And if you have an amazing product and you're talking to the people who you built that product specifically for or the service, it should not be horrendously difficult. That doesn't mean it's easy, because it's hard to get in front of people, there's competition and so on. But there has to be some structure, some core there. And unfortunately, that's not the case for a lot of people. And I'm not sitting on some high horse here. I've done this 1,000 times and just created things where there's no actual value there comparative to the market. And so I go and try and sell it. I hit my head against a wall. I try and improve, and I'm like, oh, it's the sales process. It's how I'm going about selling. I need to sell more. I need to hire this. I need to spend this money. And really, it's just the product or the service. So again, think about that. That said, we can also break down, oh, I literally wrote that said on the slide. That's funny. We have those 5 ways of selling. So now we can tie that into, well, how do you go about that? And what I wrote here is the one big thing in my experience that applies to each of these types of selling. Again, I want to set you up in terms of the questions to ask and how to think about this. And so you can go do your own research after this, and I'll talk more about that as well, because I don't want to spend 12 hours just doing a super deep dive on all of this stuff. So this is just the one thing that will make or break however you go about each of these domains of sales. I'll start at the top. You have cold email. That comes down, in my experience, to 2 things. First is the subject line. There's kind of 3 things there. The first is the infrastructure. If you mess up the infrastructure and your emails are burned from day 1, you're just kind of screwed. So just get the infrastructure right. Once that's right, subject lines. So many people, nearly everyone, like enterprise to small business, the way they approach cold email is by sticking some super salesy thing in the subject line of the email. If you just scrapped that and you replaced it with the word hey, all lowercase, or all lowercase the first name of the lead that you're sending the email to, so many businesses will quadruple their open rates overnight, and quadruple then, like, trickle down effect, the actual close rates or the conversions from email overnight. So just super simple subject lines. At the very least, just A/B test that against the subject lines you're running or you would run if they're kind of salesy. Just again, try it, take my word for it. On the offer side, this kind of ties into, again, just pipeline doesn't beat product, in the sense of you need an actual offer. And this is a lot easier said than done. You need something where if the person who it was meant for hears it, a sizable number of them will understand the value. That's the core of a lot of sales. It's especially the core of outbound email because it's so condensed. You have a few sentences, like a few hundred characters in which to sell and to close someone. So just, you really need to hone in on that offer, make sure that offer makes sense to the people receiving the email. If that's there and people open it, so that's the infrastructure and the subject line side of it, you're set, you're good to go. Just scale that to the moon. Okay, now content. This is social media, and this is website as well. Website, it's less so watch time versus just engagement, like time on page, engagement time. But it's just specifically, I'll use social media. Verbiage, the only thing that matters is watch time. Forget likes, forget comments, forget shares, forget how many subscribers or how big of an audience you have. Forget everything except watch time. And if you can make something where people watch it on average for 20 seconds and it's a 15 or 10-second long video, you will get millions of views. If you have a 6-minute video and people watch it on average for 5.5 or 6 minutes, you will get millions of views. Nothing else matters than watch time. In terms of content performing well. There are, of course, other factors if you want to turn that into sales and say just stick a call to action in there, for example, actually tell people what to do, and also just only do that occasionally. You don't want to just hammer them with offers and sales and every single piece of content. But other than that, you will be enormously successful with content if you just do nothing except optimize a watch time and keep optimizing watch time, and do that with the person or the customer of your business in mind, right? Make content for the customer of your business and make content that they watch. If you do that, you will similarly be very successful with content. Next, we have cold calling. There's kind of two components here. First is just the leads to call. The industry average pickup rates for calling is like 3% on mobiles. There's a lot of ways to get it a lot better than that I won't get into now, but just make sure your leads are quality. Spend a lot of time making sure the leads you call are good and you can actually get in front of people. Because if you're like the average sales rep out there that's just not closing anyone, a lot of that isn't them. It's the volume that they get or the volume that they don't get, because, okay, you make 150, 200 dials a day. Of that, you get a 3% pickup rate off 200 dials. That's 6 people. And of those, for 2, they were retired because your data was bad. 2 of them just don't want to talk because they're busy. And then you only actually have 2 sales opportunities. And if your close rate there is like 10%, you're talking 1 deal a week, maybe. That converts to a sales call, and then there's only 10% there. You're talking like a few deals a year, maybe that go through. So if you really want to scale it up, get the leads right, and then the opener. And then this is less so my domain versus the other things on this list, cold calling. I mean, I have worked with a lot of people who are amazing at cold calling, total pros, and going off what they say, so this is largely from their mouths and what I've seen as well, just observing them, it's all about the opener, right? It's the first 10 seconds. And again, I would say don't sell and build relationships. I think that would be my kind of distilled advice. There's a lot of specific strategies. If you want to see videos on that, let me know. But generally just really focus on the opener and actually test it, right? Have 10 different openers, make 500 dials per opener, and see what converts the best. If you do that, if you nail the opener, your lead quality is good, you're going to be great. Again, you'll scale that to the moon. Okay, now we have advertising. What's really nice about advertising is that you have a lot of room to test, especially with the algorithms today on your PPC platforms. And I'm going to ignore, the vast majority of spend for small businesses is going to be digital PPC or pay-per-click advertising. It's not going to be your contract stuff, your print. So we'll just focus on digital advertising that's pay-per-click. So Meta, TikTok, Google, Snapchat, right, etc. Amazon as well, I think, would be a big one for e-com. It's really easy to test because you can rely on algorithms that test many different combinations of ad elements for you. So you have your creatives, you have your copy, you have your offer. You can test 1,000 combinations in 3 days just because you start a Performance Max campaign on Google and it does it all for you, right? So really focus on the iterative nature of what you're doing advertising-wise. Test new things, and once something does well, really note that, and then that becomes the new baseline. If something does well, create variations, test variations of that, keep doing that recursively, and eventually they'll just do well. If the product or service is good. Again, this is all contingent on, like, do people actually want the product or service? Next is the framing of the offer on the advertising side. This especially applies to things like YouTube ads, where it's like a video ad, but also to general advertising, and to also what's on the landing page or on the website or the destination where people click through, or instant forms, just like wherever people convert to. Same thing as cold email. You have very, very limited space. You have a few sentences, maybe a few words in some cases, to convince someone that what you're selling is worth their time to go and give you something else, like their information or the time to book a call. So spend a lot of time thinking about the offer and just talk to the customers. Find a way to talk to people. I don't care if you cold call them, you LinkedIn, you go on dating apps to find them. Get in front of those people, ask them questions like, just, does this resonate more with you or just this? And then just improve that also by actually testing it with A/B tests, with A, B, C, D, E tests. And you do those 2 things right, you will have good, profitable ads. Last one is word of mouth. There are a few levers you can pull here, right? There's affiliate programs and rewards. I would say the mainstay here is just if you have a great product and service, it will grow organically via word of mouth. 100% go for an affiliate program or reward program of some sort, like just incentivize people to talk about you. But again, the mainstay, the core thing of word of mouth is if you're getting word of mouth, that's a really, really good sign because that says people really like and share your product or service without you having to pay them. Okay, that in mind, what are the next steps for you? You're watching this, we've talked about a lot. I want to distill this into kind of actionable next steps. I have 5 specific steps here. The first of them is encompassing all of the rest. Again, a big goal here is, well, you should know the questions to ask now. So go through that process, that exercise of writing down your sales process, or if you have no idea because you haven't started anything, what actually applies to you, well, now you know what's out there and what could match your business. Go do research. Go do a deep dive on what is best for your business and learn about those structures and then just try them. And if you're already doing one of those, okay, great. Now you know what to go find on YouTube because you know, okay, this is the station, so to speak, in my sales funnel. I need to convert walk-in traffic better for my bakery. I need to have better VSLs on my landing page on my SaaS business, whatever it is. Go do a deep dive on that because hopefully you know what you need to improve. And that is that operationalization. That's a mouthful right there. That is half the struggle. And the rest is just put in the reps, put in the money, the time, the effort to actually go and test those things in the real world. That said, super quick run through here. For ads, very materially, just after you've done your own research, go to ads.google.com, Facebook, same for TikTok or Amazon, any other platform. If you aren't familiar with graphic design and you aren't a design expert, just Google AI tools. There are some really fantastic AI tools out there. And then just start testing. And again, watch more YouTube videos. This is the start. This is not the end point. Email-wise, I recommend Instantly for leads and email. You will need a leads component for calling, for email, and then the actual platform to do the thing on. I recommend Instantly, but also just go with whatever you want. I don't care. You do what you like. Calling wise, I also recommend Orem. That's what we have used in the past. It's worked really well. It is more expensive for sure than other ones out there. Lead platform, there's a lot. Just get one and go from there, and you'll figure it out on your own. I don't want to spiel about lead platforms for an hour. Content-wise, if you don't have a website or social media profiles for your business, it is 2025. Go do that right now on every platform. And then the way I would frame it is just whatever you think is entertaining or useful, educational or entertaining is like the E&E rule in a sense, to the customers of your business, not to general markets, to the customers of your business. Go film that. It's going to be bad if you've never done it before. You're going to be embarrassed. You're going to hate the sound of your voice. It's not going to be fun, but go do it and then do it again and do it again and do it again. And 500 times later, people will probably listen and you'll hate yourself and how you sound a little less. And the actual customer of your business and making content for them is 100 times more valuable than making content with general appeal. And so I think William Brown, like Will, is a great example of this. He has maybe 20, 30,000 YouTube subscribers and he makes $500,000 plus a month profit personally from his YouTube channel. That's like double-digit dollars per subscriber per month, which is just crazy. So he's done that really, really well. And that is the model in terms of sales, in terms of growing your business versus just general attention, right? Views mean very little for your business if you don't convert into sales. So make content for the customers of your business. It will suck. It will suck less the second time and so on until it sucks not at all. And then it's good all of a sudden. We hope. So there you go. I guess my last note here is you can do it. Do not be intimidated. It is a rep thing. No one is a genius at this. They've just done it for a long time and they've tried a lot of things, and they've gotten better at it over time. So you can do it. It is very achievable. There's nothing that's being gatekept from you, and everything that nearly all of the world uses to do this kind of thing is on YouTube. It's on other platforms. It's in books that are $4. You got this. And again, go check out Doula with this link and use code JONLAW for 10% off LLC formation and bookkeeping. That, my friends, is the video. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.